Hello everybody, welcome to the West Ham Way YouTube channel. You'd have heard West Ham are in the Europa League this season. Who better to bring on to divulge some of these European teams than Alex, the Euro expert himself. Alex, long time no see, mate. How are you getting on?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yes, it's good to be back on.
Yeah, good to have you back on, mate. Obviously, this is quite hard for me, with the majority of previews. I've watched a lot of Premier League football. Now with the Europa League, I'm well out of my element. So, but on the topic of Premier League football, how do you feel that West Ham have done so far? Because I've got my own opinion. I'm relatively happy. But what are your thoughts on West Ham's season after the first 4 games?
Oh, they've been brilliant. I expected them to drop off, and
So did everyone, man. It's mad.
yeah, I was expecting. I think we came on before, and I was like, they might finish like 11th, 12th. You just want to keep the vibe going. Mate, the vibe of West Ham's brilliant. Like,
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I've been watching. I think I've watched a few West Ham games now, and it's mainly just a tune for Ben Rama. He's so good. I'm so glad he's actually playing now and like properly contributing.
Yeah, no, definitely. He's definitely coming into his own. I think he's for me, the big thing with him has always been, can he make the runs in behind, just the way that we counter. I think he's gone from that Brentford team where it's everything to feet and it's kind of been built around him in a possession-based side to a counter-attacking side. But I think Benrahma's always had the intent to learn and develop. He's obviously got the talent as well. And he nearly got Premier League Player of the Month alongside Mikel Antonio, who obviously did. So from that perspective, can't complain. Obviously, we did get a 0-0 against Southampton. It dampens it slightly. But listen, if you told me we were unbeaten after 4 games, I would have absolutely snatched your arm off.
Yeah, I wouldn't have believed that either.
Yeah, well, we're just too good, mate. Right, Dinamo Zagreb. Talk to me about them. Talk to me about their league so far. How are they getting on?
Right, well, Zagreb, I mean, they have been, turmoil's not the word. So we probably remember them last season when they knocked out Tottenham of the Europa League. They beat them 3-0 at home. Ha 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 ha. But
lovely stuff.
they're in a, I think it's good news for West Ham first. Not only did they knock out Tottenham, but they've got significantly weaker since then. So you may have remembered from the Tottenham game that the manager of Zagreb, Zoran Mamic, he got sent to prison the day before the game, and everyone was like, "Oh, Tottenham have lost to a managerless team." It goes a bit deeper than that. So Mamic was a very successful coach. I mean, Zagreb have won the last couple of Croatian leagues, but him and it was the former director of football and the owner have all been they've all been arrested for fraud, and it was due to when they sold Dejan Lovren. Apparently, they siphoned off millions of pounds. Zoran, the headline said he's gone to prison. He's not. He's currently a fugitive and he's hiding in Bosnia.
No way.
And that's
nuts,
not.
Man.
That's not even to say the players they've lost. I mean, one of the good players against Tottenham was someone called Lovro Mayer. He's left the club now. He's gone to Rennes. Josko Gvardiol, a really talented left back. He's now gone to RB Leipzig. Even Gavinovic, I believe, he didn't do too well in the Europa League last season, but he's left now. He's gone to Turkish football. And this is the least money Zagreb have spent in, I think, since 4 years ago. Their squad is really thin, but there is a couple of players still to definitely keep an eye on.
Have they still got the man that got the hat-trick against Tottenham?
Indeed, Miroslav Orsic.
Unbelievable, mate. Honestly, the football. I mean, again, it's difficult, isn't it? We're talking snapshots, and obviously, it was much more exciting for me to watch him absolutely batter Tottenham. But in a serious note, he did look really, really tidy, carrying the ball, finishing ability. Is he their main man?
Yes. So the only thing I'll quickly disclaimer. So I've got no injury news on him. I've not seen any injury news. He played a couple of games ago, but a couple of predicted lineups he's not in. But I don't see why he doesn't start personally. I mean, really? The predicted
doesn't even start.
Well, apparently. I was looking at on Squawka, and they said they haven't got Orsic to start, but they've also got Gavinovic in, who's literally left the club. So, I mean, I hope he Orsic starts. And yeah, I mean, to lead on from that, not only did he smash Tottenham, he got a goal and assist against Spain in the Euros. It was in the quarterfinal, I believe. So this guy's really talented, and it's a good transition into how Zagreb play in terms of the way they beat Tottenham was they kind of. In possession, they played into a back three. It was like a 3-4-3. And Orsic kind of dropped into a left wing back role. And that brought out the brilliant right back, Serge Aurier. He brought him out of possession and out of position, sorry. And then he just targeted the entire game. And that's how he kind of got the goal. So kind of leads into Zagreb. I mean, not to waffle too much, but this club, you may not have heard of them too often beyond last year, but they in 2011 they were like named the 11th best academy in Europe. They've produced like Luka Modric, Mateo Kovacic, Dejan Lovren. I think in the Croatia squad that got to the World Cup 2018 final, 14 of the players have played for Dinamo Zagreb. Like the players they produce are really technically gifted. So even though we might not know all the names from their team, they're generally pretty good.
They're a crazy nation, Croatia, to be fair to them. They're quite small, and obviously at the national stage, they perform so well. And players you mentioned, Kovacic, Modric, really technically sound players. We've got our own Croatian at the minute, Vlasic. I saw him for about 30 minutes on Saturday. I just want to know your thoughts about him, because I think he gives us something different in an attacking midfield position. He's so comfortable under pressure. He's brilliant carrying the ball. He'll get him beyond. Do you think that was a clever signing from West Ham?
Yes and no. I think the only no part is the fee. I can't remember. It was like 25 mil, I think, which is for anyone coming out of the Russian Premier League, that's a bit of a gamble. But I kind of think of him in the same way to someone like Ben Rama in terms of I think he's great when he's confident. And you can see for Spartak last season or CSKA last season, he was really a lot of his shots were from long range. They ended up going in, but it was a really good creator. I think he averaged 4 key passes per 90. The interesting thing about Vlasic, I'm not sure if Moyes starts him this game, not because like it won't be good enough, but the Zagreb fans actually really don't like it. Basically,
get him on, mate. Get him on for the atmosphere. Surely he'll thrive.
Well, it's because he came through, I think the club Hajduk Split, which is another Croatian team, and it's Zagreb's big rival. And like, it's not necessarily like a rivalry in terms of Tottenham and Arsenal. It's Croatian West Ham fans have said, if you're coming to watch the game, do not wear Vlasic shirts because the Zagreb fans will take that as a way to fight, and they will come after you. So if any fans are going to Croatia on Thursday, just bear that in mind. Like they really will not take kindly to Vlasic or anyone wearing his shirt.
Yeah, no, I imagine it does get pretty hairy over there, like, particularly with that sort of thing. Talking about Vlasic, I think I personally would like him to play, if I'm honest. I do think you saw on Saturday, particularly with the lineup, an unchanged lineup. We just brought in Zuma, we brought in Vlasic. It just seems like a great opportunity to get some of our fringe players out there, but essentially our summer signings, Areola, Zuma, Vlasic. I think they just need game time. But, you know, in particular, I look at Zuma. I think he's an immediate upgrade on Craig Dawson. We spoke about him at length previously. And I just feel that given this type of game, I think he'll just get a couple of minutes under his belt, get his fitness, get up to speed. And we know with David Moyes, listen, you have to play and perform to even challenge for the side. He won't put you in automatically. Yeah,
I think it would be the right time to try some of those names. The only thing would be, so the one thing about Zagreb, I mentioned, they're completely in transition. Their squad is a lot weaker than it was before. It's just going away to Croatia. I mean, that's where Spurs beat Zagreb 2-0 at home fairly comfortably last season. Then they went away and lost 3-0. And the team, to kind of show how in transition they are. I mean, you probably remember, the people watching remember recent headlines of the first Moldovan team to get to the Champions League. It was like Sheriff or someone. Yeah, Sheriff beat Zagreb 3-0. So it kind of shows they're not really up to level. But when they played away in Croatia, it was 0-0. So it's not necessarily I would take some chances against this team. Like I said, I think West Ham are more than good enough to even get through this group. Yeah. But I think I'd bring on Vlasic maybe at halftime or after 50, 60 minutes. I'd definitely start Zuma and Areola though.
Okay. So with that being said, what do you anticipate, particularly with Zagreb? Is it a case of the fact that they're at home? Are they gonna engage in the press a little bit more? Are West Ham gonna have to be a little bit conservative, or are they gonna relinquish a lot of possession and hit West Ham on the counter?
It's an interesting one. So the best sample size really got is that Tottenham game. I mean, when they were in the Europa League last season, I think they kept 6 clean sheets overall. So they're really good defensively, but the thing about them is they come very well prepared, very well tactically prepared. I mean, I mentioned how they kind of outplayed Tottenham when they played them. So, but in that game also, they had 40% possession. Like they didn't go straight at Tottenham, right? But it's a wonder if they're putting West Ham on the same level as Tottenham, maybe they will sit back. But it's the first European game. I mean, they're still top of the league as well. They're likely to win the league still. So they might go for it a bit more. But I think if they do, I think West Ham could cut them apart on the counter attack. Really, if they sit back a bit more worried, just because they're going to be well drilled, they're going to know a lot more than me and you put together about West Ham. So if they get to settle back into their shape, they might be able to nick a 1-0 win or a draw.
I hope not. I mean, look, I think the thing is with us, particularly this season, you've seen us try and be a little bit more on the front foot, play a little bit of a higher line, get the fullbacks a little further forward and try and build possession in the final third, which is something that we didn't really see last season. We were essentially a counter-attacking side, but it does leave you particularly vulnerable. And the problem I've got with this game, particularly when you're analysing West Ham, is I genuinely don't know what Moyes is going to pluck for, because I think Crowell comes in. I almost think that's guaranteed, because obviously he needs to play game time. He brought him in. There's a relatively big price tag at the end of this season. So I think Moyes will look to bed him in a little bit more. But I personally would imagine Lanzini may come in alongside him. Now, if we're talking a 4-2-3-1 and that's your double pivot, I don't feel defensively that there's enough there. So that would be my only concern. It's a sort of partnership where West Ham have to dominate the ball and control the game. So is there any area of West Ham, particularly with this potential lineup, that you worry about us for?
If that double pivot would worry me, just because like that a double pivot of that, like Crow and Lanzini, that'd be very attacking. Like Crow, his best quality at Sparta, like I'm a big fan of Crow. His best quality is the way he dribbles the ball. Like he's so aesthetically pleasing the way he carries it forward. Even though he does a bit of defensive work, he's a player you probably want as the attacking half of a double pivot. And if this was a weaker team, like you've got in your group, Vienne, Zagreb, and Genk. If this was Vienne, I'd say you could get away with it, but it's not necessarily that Zagreb are like, they haven't got superstars. I'd say Orsic is the closest thing they have, and a striker called Petkovic, who got like 18 goals and assists last season. But generally, they're all pretty good under pressure. Like I said, a lot of them have spent a lot of time at Zagreb, where you get very technically good on the ball. So it's not a case of West Ham could just blow them apart and get in their faces and win the ball. Like these are players who have the quality to play out of pressure. But I think that would be the only thing. I saw a tweet the other day, I think it was yesterday, saying Zagreb are probably West Ham's toughest game. I disagree. I think Genk probably are. So I wouldn't be too worried about Zagreb. It's just a case of playing away in Croatia doesn't really have good history for the teams who come against them. And yeah, that double pivot you mentioned, if it's that, I'd raise my eyebrow.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got to be completely honest. That is essentially a backup double pivot to Rice and Souček. If you're asking me personally, I would prefer us trying to put a few first teamers in there. I look at the back line and I think you probably have got an opportunity. Zuma, Diop, Areola. There's not too much drop off in quality there, and I'd be happy with that. It is just the midfield where part of me thinks we need to rest Declan Rice, particularly for Sunday against Manchester United. Souček really needs a rest. So I wonder whether Moisey goes with 45 minutes for one or the other, because you're right. There's no real balance in there unless you're absolutely dominating possession. So another player I want to ask you about is Yarmolenko, a player that is quite sort of divisive amongst West Ham fans purely because he just doesn't really feel like a player for our system. But do you think he can possibly thrive in the Europa League? I know people have mentioned about a difference in pace. Do you think that comes into account?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. I didn't really completely see it coming. I think Yarmolenko, kind of likened to Musa Sissoko, is clearly has talent, but he's just so inconsistent, especially at club level. I mean, I bet you guys were fuming when he played for Ukraine and he turned into Iron Robin. It was like brilliant.
I'm not surprised. I'm genuinely not surprised, because you give him space and time like he did against the Netherlands from the edge of the box, he will score. He's got an unbelievable left foot.
Yeah, I tell you, I reckon he could be good in this, because I think the majority of teams West Ham will play, like Zagreb might be the only one. I think Genk have got, probably might even preview them next time, but they're a bit more speedy on the attack, so they could get away with counter-attacking as well. So I think Zagreb are the only team that might push a bit high against West Ham. Generally, I think Yarmolenko, like you mentioned about his pace, I think he'll be all right in terms of in the Europa League, he's not going to be required to counter-attack super quickly. So he should get that space and time, and he should be able to make things happen the way he does.
Why do you think in the Europa League that there isn't, like from your perspective, that there isn't that many opportunities for counter-attacking? Because the way I look at it for West Ham, it's okay, we want to play on the front foot. We have to try and break low block size down. That is something that we're already coming up against this season. But why do you feel that because of the competition that there aren't those opportunities for West Ham to really utilise the likes of possibly Antonio, Bowen, Fornals?
I think it is a lot about. It's a lot about the opposition you've got, and I think in Europe in general, like Europa League, Conference League, Champions League. I mentioned this recently. So we saw Ligue 1 drop down to sixth in UEFA's coefficient, which meant the sixth best league in Europe, right? And what you get in Europe in these teams is 2 or 3 games in, like depending on how they started, they get a choice of like, are we going to try and go in this competition, or are we going to rest our players? Like Kanye mentioned now, like resting players for the weekend. So generally, it's like you can't always play your best strength XI, and sometimes you're going to be a bit more defensive. So it kind of leads to teams, even talented teams, who maybe in a league will play at a quicker tempo. They go to the Europa League and go, okay, we can sit back here. Like I'll be surprised if a team like VN plays like their best team against you guys. So because I think they'll prioritise the league, maybe arguably with Genk. I think Zagreb's the only one where, like I've alluded to, look, they're quite dominant in their league. So this is that's maybe the only team who can just power all their energy through the Europa League like they did last season.
It's such an interesting proposition as a West Ham fan for us, because we've not really had too much squad depth, let's be honest, for probably the past 2 or 3 seasons. And now we're sort of really presented with Manchester United on Sunday. We've played obviously on the Saturday gone. Do you think West Ham really, with the quality that we've got, can afford to rotate? And to what extent can we afford to rotate? From your opinion, would you say you've got to have, I know Antonio might be a shoo-in because he's not going to play against Manchester United. Do you think we possibly have to look at maybe Aaron Creswell at left back, possibly Declan Rice or Thomas Souček? Do you think that's something that West Ham have to consider? Or do you think we are strong enough to go and get the result?
I think maybe a little biased just because I have this perspective of whatever team you are in the Europa League, if you feel like you're going to be able to rest players at some point, you should start it as best as possible. So I think that's what Chelsea have probably done tonight. I haven't seen their lineup, but because ideally from West Ham, your ideal situation is qualifying within 3 or 4 games and going, all right, last 2 games we're through. Let's just play the academy players. Let's just rest our best players. So even though I think West Ham, I think we spoke about it before, they've got a really talented squad. It's just that squad's quite thin. Yeah. So it's the only thing, like, I say the best thing forward, because you've got to remember as well, I believe you get 5 subs in these competitions. So you do have the scope. Yeah, you have the scope to bring players off. And I think you'll be I'd start maybe Rice and then Krau and then take Rice off after 60 minutes if things are going well.
Yeah, I'm half tempted to leave a few first teamers in there. I've got to be honest. I do want to do well in this competition. It's just, I think the positive start to the season has kind of skewed it a little bit, because I think we look at the league and we think, hang on a minute, we are still a competitive side, if not slightly improved. So we can't take our eye off that. But it is a good point, and a lot of West Ham fans will be applauding you right now, because I've seen some very, very strong lineups. We all love a European tour, I've got to be honest. I want to ask you quickly about Areola, because you'll probably be fuming at this stage that he hasn't played for West Ham yet. Do you think it is simply just a matter of time? We've seen Fabianski make a few errors even early doors. Do you think with a good Europa League campaign that he can really push for that first team in the Premier League?
Yeah. I to be honest, you mentioned I'll be fuming. I'm not too much, because I think Areola, like, Fabianski isn't like Joe Hart. Like, he's still last season he was really good. So it's a case of he doesn't deserve to lose his place, even if Areola deserves a spot. And in goalkeeper, obviously, you only got 1 spot. So I think by the end of the season, Areola will be number 1. But yeah, he's levels ahead of Fabianski. It's not an insult to him. I mean, I got flack on Twitter recently because I said Areola is a world-class keeper and he's better than Eduard Mendy. And I stick to that, because people say he's a PSG reject and things. I recommend you actually look at the games he's played. It's only really been 2 seasons where he's been benched. And that was the last season at Real Madrid and his last season at PSG. And at PSG, he won the league with them twice. This is a guy who's got the experience. I don't think he'll mind sitting out the Premier League for the bit. And because Fabianski's so respected, I think he knows in a few months' time, Fabianski will phase himself out anyway. I mean, how long's left on his contract?
1 year. That's it at the end of the season. So anything can happen. The best case scenario for him, I think, is that given the club only gave him a 1-year deal last year, they'll just give him 1 more. So I actually feel that it is almost inevitable that Areola will be our first choice shot stopper. But I do like the idea of having both of them in the squad. I know West Ham fans watching this will realise we have about 4 keepers in the squad, which is ridiculous anyway. But in terms of quality, the first two, I like having it. It just gives us a little bit of depth. And I think as well, you mentioned about Areola won't be too downhearted with it. I also think as well, you look at who we've brought in, good mates with Zuma, Diop, there's like that French connection in there. So I think that the squad spirit's very, very good. And I think a lot of these players that aren't yet getting their chance are probably relatively relaxed, because I guarantee you Moisey sat down with them and said, look, you'll get your chance, just train well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I bet Areola had in the discussions for West Ham, because that was the deal that was ramped up first, which is surprising.
Yeah.
I bet in those discussions it was, listen, Fabianski, he's not Kepa Arrizabalaga. Like, we can't dump him to the bench straight away. He doesn't deserve it yet, but obviously you're world class, so you'll get your chance at West Ham easily.
Yeah, I don't know if he's world class, but I'm gonna. I should
clarify.
I'm gonna back it.
I should clarify, but when I say world class, I should swip it around. When I say world class, I mean like the second tier. My opinion, like elite's top. Without getting into a big debate about it. So I think he's like in the top 2 brackets of goalkeepers.
I think he's just been unfortunate, really, because you look at you've broken it down in terms of the stats, and you know I've seen the stats and I've seen him play, and I think he's a top keeper. But people will say we didn't do that well for Fulham, and it's like you got to look at it a little bit more in context, or they'll say he was benched at PSG. I think there's absolute potential there, and I think him playing at West Ham, if he plays regularly, which I assume that he will eventually, and if we are in the top half or we are in the top 8, he'll finally get the credit and the recognition that he deserves.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like, I can't believe people are using Fulham as an insult against Areola. Like, I saw like relegated to Fulham. They're a promoted club, and then I think they had like the 11th best defense in the Premier League or something like that.
Don't argue with him, man. You never win.
No, I did it. I did it to one day. So I quoted his tweet and he deleted it. So you can flush him down.
Good. Too right. I hope so with West Ham signings. Score prediction, Alex. What are we saying in this game?
I'm going to go with. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say 1-0 West Ham. I don't think Zagreb will. I think West Ham are going to be okay. I think this is going to be an easier tie than people predicted. I think I was going to say 0-0, but I'm going to back West Ham and say 1-0 because their attack's so good. And if you get Zuma in, then I think your defense will be shored up as well.
Definitely, mate. I honestly feel Zuma is inevitable at this point, particularly with Craig. I feel bad for Craig Dawson a little bit because he did have a good debut at West Ham, and he obviously had his limitations. But now it's getting to a point where if you are going to play a little bit more progressively, or you are looking to play effectively on the front foot, he is a bit of a liability. So everything crossed. I'm going 1-0 West Ham as well. Again, it's tough for me because I don't really know what I'm watching with Zagreb. I could watch them and think if they press us high and for whatever reason Dawson's there and we can't play out from that press, then I'll start to worry and it could be a bit tighter. But I just think the quality will tell naturally. I just think if Moyes is clever in this competition and he rotates, and if he wants to play Declan, which I don't necessarily agree with, or even Souček, play it for the 45, change it up, use your options, and then everyone's a winner. But I do think it'd be really important for West Ham to get 3 points and a massive statement, because people, like you've got the inside knowledge essentially, or you've looked at it and said, well, actually, they are in turmoil. But from the outside in, and particularly for West Ham fans, they'll sit there and say, Zagreb's not an easy place to go. And I'm sure that it's not particularly with the fans. So it'd be a massive win for us. And then obviously we need the momentum for Sunday because we haven't got a centre forward, mate.
Yeah, that'd be the thing as well, actually. I'll be interested to see where Vlasic plays, actually, striker or attacking move, because he's so different to Antonio.
Mate, this is the question. I'm actually almost half looking forward to the preview for the United game because I want to discuss the conundrum. Because I think because it's going to be a false 9, right? But it's just who you play as false 9. Is it Jared Bowen or is it Vlasic? So it's a bit of a.
I wouldn't even say false 9. I think because I haven't been able to watch the game. I think bed all day ill, but I saw Man United lost to Young Boys today. So
they won, didn't they? 1-2.
I think they lost 2-1. I believe. You could double check. Maybe I misread. Maybe my eyes are not working. But either way,
Wan-Bissaka definitely got sent off, so it might be true. I'll double check.
Yeah, go on, double check now. But
let's have a look.
That's a big.
It'd be funny if they did lose.
I think they did.
Oh my god, they actually lost.
Yeah, 2-1. There we go. And I didn't watch the game, but from previous United losses, especially the Champions League, remember when they played like a Turkish team last season? They get done on the counter attack if they overcommit. So I don't reckon you'll play a false 9. I reckon you'll play your quickest players up top. West Ham aren't going to go for possession against Man United. I reckon you're just going to break him.
Sometimes with West Ham, it's like, I think to myself, let's just be conservative. And this is a big point, actually, because this is a big six side. And last season, we didn't perform too well against them. In fact, game plan wise, we relinquished a lot of possession and we just weren't effective enough. But this is the type of game. And I look at Wolves and I think if Fred plays as a defensive midfielder and with that attacking four, it could be an absolute nightmare. So I think there are opportunities in there. I just think we have to almost go back to what we did last season where we are defensive and compact and then hit on the transitions.
Yeah, I will say as well, for what I did see of the game, Ronaldo got subbed off. So I imagine he's been rested for your game. So maybe Ollie's going to blow you away.
He better not, mate. I'm on there. I'm in there in Sunday. So seeing the return of Ronaldo, at least I don't have to see it on telly where it's going to be a whole preview on Ronaldo and then West Ham versus Man United. Listen, Alex, cheers for your time, mate. Really appreciate it. Of course, you are going to be back for the Genk game. Actually, in fact, you're going to be back for all of the Europa League games. We'll chat a little bit about them and the teams out there and we'll get you back on. So let the people know where they can find you, mate. Loads of interesting stuff. I know you're a big presence on Twitter and now you're obviously on YouTube as well. Yeah,
you can. Anyone who wants to watch more of me, you can find me on YouTube, TikTok, or Twitter at EuroExpert. I was on TikTok. Don't worry, I'm not dancing. It's you learn about a lot of players and the ratings I give them. And actually, here's a good plug. If you go to my YouTube channel, the latest video uploaded was the transfers across Europe ranked over like 80. And there were more West Ham players in the top 20 than Arsenal players in the top 50, I believe. So you can see how good a window I think West Ham have had.
Now listen, everyone go and check it out. Actually, like normally when it's a player out there, I do check on Alex's Twitter just to see what he's saying because he knows his stuff. I'm gonna wrap it up here. If you did enjoy the video, obviously drop a like on it, subscribe to the West Ham Way if you're watching and you're new to the channel. I am going to be back probably post-match for the Zagreb game. I'm literally running home from work to try and watch it and then go and do a post-match. So it's going to be an absolute nightmare. Quick turnaround. Man United preview will probably out or maybe Saturday morning. And until next time, everybody take